then are songs that we are a major part of our repertoire now.
Yeah.
Songs like
Cool.
Caroline, uh, Cold December, Beyond and Before Us, Writing on the Wall. They all came about in the first couple years of me writing on those keyboards. As I was beginning with college, silently and mostly to myself, although I had a group with Rich Marino that was more of a jam group of two keyboards and trying to explore that, which we had various names, but the one we usually came back to was Laid Back. And that was sort of our attitude toward the music too. It was not the heavy kind of focus that Seance was. Rich was somebody who, at the time Seance was breaking up, he and I were in media classes together, and we were working on a video for one of the Seance songs in the studio sessions, Faded Souls, that was going to include all these kind of apocalyptic kind of visions from the past, you know, photographs of nuclear explosions and Vietnam and napalm and all the kind of things that are in the thing. But that sort of fell through when the group broke up. But then we started a partnership that was very much a dual keyboard, bass kind of, and drums through the keyboards kind of sound. And I started to explore that kind of music while I was pursuing very heavily the idea of becoming a therapist.
And at the same time you were doing that, which would take us into like February to April 85, I should say. I was in a band called Bad Habits. I really sold my soul to compromise. I was in a full-fledged cover band now in Lawrenceville, doing nothing but top 40, Huey Lewis and stuff like that. And we never even played out. It was a tragedy. We did all this fine tuning and everything, and it turned out the drummer, Bob Story, who by the way was a big Kansas freak, was obsessed with this band called Street Heart and another band called Gigolo that did cover material like the back of their hand. And so while Chris was doing that, he was studying Point Park and doing Fast Streamer and Laid Back with Rich Marino. I was doing this, selling my soul to the devil, so to speak. And then what happened was when we got through our freshman year of college, and this takes us to the summer of '85, we had a full-fledged rekindling now, none of this false start stuff, and Chris and I were like, let's do this again. And what happened is right before that, I got a jam band together called Silent Choir with Dave Hampel on bass and Chris Ferguson on drums. And Chris and I got together, and it was basically Seance with a different drummer and a bass player, so it's a different name.
Right.
And we did Starlight Beyond the Sun, Dragon Slayer, Persian Nights, Dark Ages. Recording of that still exists.
Right, and a lot of that material, what Vince did is he had recorded a lot of this stuff, and unlike the usual way which in times past we had come up with lyrics, he basically gave me a list of 4 songs, a recording of them, and titles, and I came up with lyrics that went along with the titles, and I was they were very mystical and medieval kind of titles, Dark Ages, Dragon Slayer, Persian Nights, Beyond the Sun, very mystical kind of things, and I was sort of tired of that. So what I was focusing more on my songwriting was relationships. So I turned the titles on their head.
Graphic on Persian Nights.
Yeah, some of the songs became very sexualized, some of them were, but they were all relationship songs, because oddly enough that most songs are about relationships, and none of the Seance songs were the least bit about relationships. So,
I mean, we were frustrated. We had yet to be laid yet,
right,
man. This is frustrating. Closest Chris and I ever came was what? Fall of '83, man. We're going to talk about this now, man. Okay, man. We were at South Hills Village, man. We were just sitting there on the stoop there, sitting on the curb there, and these 2 girls came in, and I was just screaming, "Hey, girls, we're taking it in the ass!" All this really foul shit. They turned around and walked over to us. We were like both there, like, "Oh my God, we're shocked." And they were like, "Hey, we're heading down to Eden Park. You want to come with us?" I was like, "Yeah, baby." And make a long story short, this guy came along, ruined it for us. Right, and we were like a half hour into, like, man, we're gonna get some action, whatever. And the girl's name was Lee. Goes, "Lee, hey, your boyfriend wouldn't like us." So Chris and I were so frustrated. We came this close, man. Hey, what the hell are we talking about? Okay, yeah, First Nights. Was it gazing at portraits on pages unnumbered? She stares at his dark eyes and dreams of his body, and quietly touching herself in places on men. She slips into fantasy and lets herself go. And then it's on a Trojan horse, Trojan rubbers. Her sheik will come, sheik rubbers.
Yes, yeah. It's
Sword poised to plunge,
right.
Dragon Slayer.
Right, and even Dark Ages, which is a song that is much more about a breakup of a relationship. Um, the songs were all about relationships. So it was a new way of writing songs for us that used dual tape deck and really overdubbing kind of technology, which was sort of a cheap kind of studio idea of being able to create songs from the music that Vince was writing. So it was a whole new style that is still something that we use today with a lot of the songs that Vince writes. That we'll demo a version and I will then hum up melodies, try to get ideas, work out the lyrics, record a demo version of it. So it's still the format that we use now to write all the songs that we collaborate on.
Yeah. And I want to say something for the record now. Chris doesn't know this, or he hasn't thought about this too. Chris is actually responsible for my band Entourage. What happened was, after the summer of '85, when Silent Choir was basically going nowhere, it was just like a jam band, so to speak. Although we did these original songs now, mind you. Well, what was happening was, our sophomore year of college was looming on the horizon. It was back to work, so to speak. And I get this junk mail letter from Rainbow Records, turned out to be a piece of crap. At the time, I was like, oh my God, I'm 19 years old. I'm starry-eyed, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed. I'm thinking, oh my God, this might be a real deal. Chris, do you want to be a vocalist? I'm going to go back in the studio, man. Third time's a charm. He's like, man, I can't, man. I'm in school, man. I'm studying for a master's, blah, 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 whatever he was doing at the time. I was like, okay. So I got this band together called it Entourage, and it was, originally it was Dave Hample, the bass player of Silent Choir, but he didn't pan. I got Mark Hicksonbaugh and Jack Geppetta. And we did a studio session. One of them was Starlight Beyond the Sun. We redid Rockchild. And from there, 86 turned into, 85 turned into 86, 87, 88, 89, 90. And in that time, I did Entourage. It was basically after Mark Hicksonbaugh got the boot, I got this guy named Rob Micarella, who was from Castle Shannon. And it was basically him and I would play bass in the studio, his friend at the bass. And so during college, Chris was, we became, sophomores, juniors, seniors in college. 86 was a no-go with us. So I was doing Entourage, but at the same time, there was this band, Diamond Hayes. It was an original band, but it was their originals. They were like a Spinal Tap heavy metal band. Well, I joined them in the summer of '86, and they were also from Lawrenceville. So this was all going on parallel to our college days. I talked about the high school days with Sounds. Well, college days was Silent Choir / Entourage / Fascist Rumor or Laid Back and / Diamond Hayes. Well, I did my tour of duty with Diamond Hayes in '86, '87 loomed around, and then I was like, you know what? Chris and I didn't get together at all in '86 because of Diamond Hayes and whatnot. Hey, I gave Chris a call, and we got together several times in '87, did some really nice jams and whatnot, and Chris had grown a lot as a keyboard player at that time, and but we just never got a full-fledged band again because, again, by that time, I was super serious about it. I mean, we're talking, I'm actively pursuing, sending out tapes to record companies. I got my press kit together. I was doing everything I could to make it, and actually, by probably the biggest thing, one of the big things I did was in the fall of '87, I was in Metal Rendezvous. The camera can get this pretty small, but demo review section. Metal Rendezvous magazine was an overcon magazine all over the world. We got compared to In Rock era Deep Purple. Ironically, Chris was on the demo tape that was sent to them, and from that, Road Racer Records. Road Racer Records had videos on MTV's Headbangers Ball. King Diamond being one of them. King Diamond's a band from Copenhagen. They were actually King Crimson. Well, anyway, Holly Lane was the A&R rep, and she was real excited about us. This leads to Chris. I'm not getting off the subject. And she was real on. She was like, "Oh, it sounds real good about your demo and everything. Can you send us another one better produced, but we're really interested, blah, blah, blah. Do you have a singer?" I was like, no, we don't. We were mostly do instrumental stuff. It was the kiss of death. And I look back, I said to myself, you know what? If we would have contacted Chris, or if Chris wouldn't have been so serious about school at the time, nothing wrong with that, who knows what may have become of that, because that really cooled our heels, because we didn't have a vocalist. I could have lied and said, Chris, come on, or whatever. We didn't. So actually, he doesn't know how close we came in more ways than one with our music, with Metal Rendezvous magazine. Sold a lot of demos through that, and more importantly with Road Racer Records and Holly Lane and whatnot. And some of my other accolades were EMI Records A&R rep really liked our material, liked my playing. John Stickson guitar, fantastic musician. And getting back to Chris again, is that he was on obviously those studio sessions from '83 and '84 respectively with Seance. Well, at least one song government communication in particular, was on all those demo tapes and sent out all over the world. I sold 75 tapes and sent out hundreds more all over the world to record companies, fanzines, magazines, radio stations, whatnot. We got played all over the world: Belgium, Finland, the Netherlands, Sweden. I mean, you name it. Okay, and all over America, on college stations, independent stations, whatnot. And his voice was on those tapes. He was in press kits and whatnot, and in demo reviews. And the whole time, Chris was basically unaware of that, because after '87, we basically, for various reasons, school being one of them and my sister being another, we kind of like fell out of touch for a while.
Right. In fact, I had actually in '87 wrote the lyrics to one of our songs, "Eternity," and never really got a chance for Vince to hear that until 2000.
Yeah.
13 years later.
You gotta get to see is Chris got a great review in a magazine, White Throne, that compared him to Robert Plant. I don't know if the camera can get that at all, but talked about government communication and Faded Soul, songs we did from February of '84. And they called it Plantish Vocals from Chris Lindstrom. And he was also mentioned on FM 92, and he played government communication for what it's worth. So Chris, ironically, was like the Brian Wilson of Entourage. He was like the phantom, the ghost of my musical days, because I was always yearning to have that chemistry again that I never had again. I was always searching for Seance Part 2 and never achieved it.
Right, and for me, music became a really singular process during those years, and I became very good at accompanying myself and writing demos and just doing music that very few people heard. Friends would get tapes of it and things like that, but not heavily pursuing it, but still working on the writing of the music and doing everything along that line. So while Vince was really pursuing it outside in the world, music became a very solitary experience for me. And really, after a while, that started to turn in on itself. I got a new keyboard, I got a synthesizer in 1987. I had an acoustic piano that same year. And that spurred things on for a while, but after a while, especially as I finished graduate school and entered the workforce, other things took a precedence in my life, and my songwriting pretty much dwindled after 1989, where I think I was probably at my height at that point as a composer. Various pieces, one that's called Life World, I wrote for graduate school, actually as an assignment that was a really probably the height of my compositional skills at the time.
And Chris is going to play Life World in just a moment. Just one thing I want to throw in, ironically, he was talking about 1989, so we're talking about the 80s. Well, 1989 was like my last gasp, really, because '89 I was back with Diamond Hayes playing out, and also in Entourage did several more studio demos and sent out tons of tapes, trying to make it, still living at home. And this was post-college now for me, because I graduated in '88 and was out in the workforce a little bit, meager jobs and whatnot. So really the light was starting to fade with me. It was basically, it doesn't look like you're going to get a record deal anytime soon, and you just don't have a full-fledged band. You've been doing it piecemeal all this time. And so 1990 rolled around, and I moved out of Bethel Park, got an unlisted number. Chris got an unlisted number. In the '90s were basically a vacuum for us. I got married, he got married, unlisted numbers, got into the workforce, went our separate ways. But interesting, he would come up with a song like Life World at that time, because I think it was really ahead of its time. Chris is going to do that for you now. Yeah, this is Chris messing around. It sounded pretty good though. This is Life World.
And that is Life World. And that was a song that I originally did with a lot of overdubs, uh, because since I wasn't playing out and it wasn't a group, I mean, I demoed a lot of things. So you'd have a lot of church bells and things like that we're working through, and motorcycles taking off and jets taking off. But the composition itself, I think, was one of the stronger things that I was playing at the time. And it's sort of a shame because I think a lot of the music that I was writing at that point was really strong, but without a lot of people hearing it, even though that was a class project in graduate school of depicting my world, Professor Rolf von Eckartsburg, who was somebody who worked with Timothy Leary in the 60s, Gordon Allport, Viktor Frankl, a lot of very famous psychologists, had written a book about creative ways of depicting your life world, and this was sort of my attempt to do that. But without those kind of forums, it became really difficult. Without the association with Vince to have somebody to interplay, I'd start to write music, I'd do things, but it just didn't go anywhere. And over time, I played less and less, got more and more into the everyday stresses of being a therapist, and a lot of the music started to dwindle as a songwriter. I still loved music. I became very interested in jazz.
Started an incredible collection.
Yeah, as my wife says, I have a collection of jazz. It's probably about 6,000 CDs that really ranges from the very earliest recordings all through the free jazz movement to some of the more recent, neo-traditionalist kind of bands. A lot of stuff into classical music. I sort of ventured out of rock music until very recently did I get back into a lot of the bands that I loved coming up. They influenced me in that direction, but I really became fascinated by the extreme music and the musicality of a lot of classical and jazz performers.
Okay, Vince, so in the intervening years, in the 1990s, your consuming passion started to change too, didn't it?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's funny how things go in cycles because like the 80s, were obviously, a time with music and playing guitar and being in seance and to a lesser extent some of these other bands like Diamond Hayes, Bad Habits, Entourage and all that. But it's funny, as the music days were waning, I got out of college, got into the workforce, and things were looking bleak as far as getting a full band together, let alone a record deal. The 1988 25th anniversary of the JFK assassination loomed around the edge, and just became obsessed with it. I always had a back of my mind interested in the case. I remember in middle school getting books out on it, reading about it. My parents were into John F. Kennedy. I collected stamps and coins that Kennedy's image on it. But make a long story short, that 25th anniversary came around November 22nd, 88. I taped everything there was on TV, all the Tom Brokaw, NBC, CBS specials. From there on, it just became a consuming passion. I just read everything I could, got videos, everything. And this takes us from 88 to basically 1990. And then from there, it really paralleled my waning music days, because when music really started to wane, even me playing guitar and ultimately me selling my first guitars, things took off. Ironically, I sold my guitars within days of my first major debut, which was a conference in Fredonia, New York. It actually was within days of that conference. So I really clipped it with the music days, just threw it all behind. I remember just going to Pittsburgh Guitars with a lot of regret, and just saying to myself, oh, what am I doing? Why am I selling these? I said, fuck it. I went to Southside, sold them, got the money. Ironically, bought a whole bunch of Kennedy videos, rare stuff from ABC and that. Went to my conference debut, but then I got heavily into Kansas and some other bands, and I just yearned to play guitar again. Got to guitar back in '93, but to answer your question directly, yeah, it just became a passion of mine, and I was always, again, paralleling the younger days, back in middle school and high school. I was into the show called The Wild Wild West, which was a fictional representation of the Secret Service of the 19th century. So naturally, when I got into the Kennedy assassination, I got fixated on the JFK assassination through the prism spectrum of the Secret Service. So I started to notice things about the agents who guarded Kennedy that other people just didn't really pay attention to put it mildly. And lo and behold, what became a consuming passion, just reading, having an interest in it, like a hobby, became something that I really researched. I started to contact a lot of these agents that guarded President Kennedy, for that matter, other agents, other presidents, I should say, and went to more conferences, got into a lot of journals, got on the radio, got in newspapers, got into books, including an Amazon.com bestseller right now called Murder in Dealey Plaza. And right now, as we speak, well, back in September this year, September 2002, I did 16 hours of filming with Nigel Turner, the producer of The Men Who Killed Kennedy special on A&E and History Channel. Well, next year sometime, I'm going to be on, millions of people worldwide will see me. I'm going to be on Men Who Killed Kennedy Part 7. There's been 6 parts so far. But, so the 90s, right to sum up the 90s. The 80s, to me, were, you know, tail end of middle school, in high school, in college, and right after college, and Chris and I with seance and playing guitar and him playing keyboards and being real gung-ho about music. And the 90s to me were us being incommunicado. Both had unlisted numbers. I moved out of Bethel Park. We both got into the workforce. I got heavily into the Kennedy assassination. Chris got into other things, but in the back of our mind, I always had a yearning for seance. Always, both shared a knot in our stomach about playing together again, playing music for real again. I remember just always having that spot in my heart. Yeah, I got a guitar in 1993. My ex-wife got it for me, and I'd pick it up a couple times a year. It was all dusty, and I remember just like, yeah, it was better than nothing, but this wasn't quite the same. I used to say, oh, my past glory's behind me. I couldn't play nearly as good as I used to, and you know, it's always an excuse. Oh, I can always put on the seance demo or this video of me, and you know, thank God I had so many records of stuff, my press kit of all my clippings and logbook and videos and that, because I lived off them through the 90s really. And then as 1999, ironically, things go in cycles. At the end of that decade began, or ended I should say, in the 90s, 99, I got a copy of our studio sessions on CD, and I got an extra copy. And I was going through a divorce, and I moved out of Bethel Park, in one area of Castle Shannon, moved to Bethel Park, I should say. I had a whim in the summer of 2000. Here I have this extra copy of our Seance Studio Session CDs. I don't know where Chris is. Every time I got the phone book, I always looked you up, and you weren't in the phone book with me, because I didn't listen to number 2. And I said, you know what, I'm going to send this CD to Chris's mom on Wilson Drive, still lived there at the time. And I was like, well, you know what, either I won't hear from Chris and he'll think this guy's a loser, what's he contacting me before, fuck him and all that, or maybe he'll contact me, and who knows what'll happen. And lo and behold, after a little while, Chrissy contacted me, and a nice letter, and we ended up talking for a long time, and we eventually got together at Borders and Burger King too, and had our first GM reminiscence whatnot in November 2000, and 20 major rehearsals later, BPTV, DVDs for stuff, video, tons of CDs, many new songs, refurbishing the old songs, both playing as good but much better than ever. And things come around full circle. I mean, here I am. I moved on my life. I'm, you know, with a great girl now, a different job, and still very interested in the case, Kennedy assassination, but back into music big time now. It's ironic. Some of the things that are happening now we would have killed for back then. This reminds me of that old Robin Williams movie from the 80s where he blew the high school game and he goes back to high school to kind of like exact revenge and does that. Maybe this is more like that movie Carrie, I don't know, but Get Revenge or something. Now we're on BPTV, you know, we couldn't make the damn Telerama tryouts, we're on BPTV, we're big stars, big Bethel Park, you know, emails and shit.
Local celebrity.
Local celebrities. But we got our sights set on more in 2003 and beyond. I mean, this is never going to end. This is going to be always us getting together, being friends and that, making music. That's the goal. But other goals are to get in studio, you know, more video projects, you know, giving BPTV the, you know, tapes to keep us going and whatnot, just making more music and stuff.
Yeah.
That's enough of me, Vinny solo. We'll go back to Chris and I. Have some random thoughts about music and that.
So suddenly, as the 90s came on for me, I was working in Homestead. I got my master's degree in psychology from Duquesne. Ironically, I went into Duquesne just as Vince left. So we never really intertwined there. I remember early in my work life getting a letter from Vince, just sort of talking about where he was at, and for one reason or another I never really got back to him. I remember at the time him mentioning the Kennedy assassination. I was like, well, hey, he was born the same year I was, in 1966. What could he know about the Kennedy assassination? Little did I know that the level of expertise he had developed in that. For me, the 90s were a very interesting decade. My wife was hired, my soon-to-be wife was hired the same week for the same job in Homestead, PA, working with chronically mentally ill. It was a really intense job. It brought us really close. Much of those years for me were involved a lot of the dating, learning to be a therapist, the kind of extremes that was, and a lot of the things that the music and this in the study of being a therapist didn't really allow me. So there was a lot of just enjoyment of those years. Around 1994, my wife and I got married. We really got into travel, developed a real interest in a lot of different things, including a real interest in lighthouses around the world. For our honeymoon, we went to London. Had a real opportunity to really start to travel and see the country a bit, and still develop as an individual and group therapist. And the year 2000 really started to make a change. Decided after 10 years of working with adults in mental health, I thought I was ready for a change. I moved to Southwood in Washington County, and began doing mobile family therapy, which was a complete different world for me. As the years had gone on, music was always there. I was known in Homestead House with the mental health clients as the guy who ran the music group. I would play, expose people to my loves of music regularly. Occasionally I'd play music, unbeknownst to Vince, of the things that we had done, the music that I had done, to share with the people, how that had enriched my creative life. But music was in the background. I would occasionally sit down at the piano or sit down at my keyboard and write something, but I never remembered it. And more often than not,